we've now been joined by our regular season champion and our second place finisher, regular season champion Kyle Busch, driver of the number 18 M&M's Carmel Toyota, and our second place finisher in today's Brickyard 400, driver of the number 20 buyatoyota.com Toyota, Erik Jones. And we will start off for questions for Kyle or Erik. If you have one, please raise your hand and state your affiliation. Who would like to get us started? Okay.
Yes, Bob Kravitz with NBC here in Indianapolis. How much of a challenge was it for both of you, for the whole field, to come out and race when you hadn't had any prior time on this track this weekend?
I think it, for me as a driver, it wasn't too bad. I think you're more worried about your car and tire rubs and hitting the splitter and how things are, how it's going to handle. So it's always unknown when you kind of just fire off, but they do a pretty good job. I mean, most weekends, if you don't fire off pretty close in practice, you're going to have a long weekend anyway. So fortunately, we fired off okay in the race, but it's still tough when you don't have, a day and a half to adjust on it and make it better. But, from the seat, I would say for me, this is a place I don't have a lot of experience at, and it's probably one of the tougher places to, get your bearings and get your marks the first run of the day. So I was, the first couple laps, you definitely take it a little bit easy being in traffic and trying to get settled in, but it wasn't too bad.
I thought today was all right, same as Erik. The guys obviously always want a chance to work on the car and kind of set everything and fine-tune and make sure everything's right, because sometimes you come here with a different tire or the tire reacts differently than what you're used to. And so for us, it was all right. When we were out front, we seemed to be pretty good. We had good speed. When we got back in traffic, we were definitely too tight, and we had to make adjustments all day long on trying to make sure that our car was free enough to come up through the field. But still, it was tough to pass, and especially when you get in line with guys after about 10, 12 laps, it seemed as though it was pretty equal after that. So I felt okay as far as just coming out here cold turkey and getting going, though.
All right. Additional questions?
Mike Williams, Indianapolis Star. Kyle, despite the bittersweet day, you picked up the 15 points in the regular season championship. Does that give you and your team any kind of momentum, since it bumps you up to the tie for first going into the playoffs?
I wouldn't say it gives us any momentum. Obviously, it just kind of sets ourselves a little bit farther ahead, if you will, compared to some of our other competition with the bonus point structure and the playoff points the way they are. The first round is going to be interesting with the Roval. Second round is going to be interesting with Talladega. So any bonus points you can pick up are obviously good ones. And I feel like we did a good job of gaining some of that stuff here this year. We've kind of given away a few stages overall in order to kind of get some race wins. So you kind of have a little bit of a trade-off there, if you will. But overall, I feel like we came out of here today with not so good of a run. We certainly wish we could have been further up front and had a better day. But all things considered, we came out of here achieving what we needed to achieve.
All right, Kyle, before we let you sneak out, if you don't mind, just to talk a little bit about us being able to kick off the playoffs in Las Vegas, which is obviously a hometown favorite track for you.
Yeah, being able to go to Las Vegas for the kickoff this year is a bit different. I'm looking forward to that. Normally we're at a different venue. We've been at different venues for a few years, so this will be the first for Vegas, and I think it's really special. We get an opportunity to go out there a little bit early, all the chase drivers, and have a couple nights out maybe on the town or whatever. But overall, I'm looking forward to getting out there and just being able to get to the racetrack. And we know, well, I say that, I'll knock on wood first, and hopefully there's no weather out there, but normally it's a pretty good time of year to see some sunshine and some hot temperatures. So looking forward to that and what Vegas is going to have in store for all of us.
All right. Well, congratulations to you both on making the 2018 Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series playoffs.
Thanks.
And we appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. All right. We are going to continue to roll in our post-race press conference here for the Big Machine Vodka 400 at the Brickyard. And we have now been joined by our race-winning crew chief, Paul Wolfe. And congratulations, Paul, on the big win today. This is the team's second victory this season with the win last week in Darlington, followed by the win at Indianapolis. That's not a bad week. And then also your 14th top 10 finish this season. So, Paul, just give us a few thoughts on the race and being able to deliver this win to Mr. Penske. I know was a big goal for all of you guys.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. Last week was one of those races as well that Team Penske hasn't won at, and since 70, whatever it was, I can't even remember now. And that was such a big win and one on the list to check off. And coming here to Indy this week, this is always a pretty special place for the boss and for the team, as much success as they've had on the open wheel side. And we've just never been able to get it done on the cup side. We were close last year. We were on the front row restart towards the end, but weren't able to execute. So, it wasn't, it was a little bit of an up and down day for us. We didn't have a lot of speed in the discount tire Ford, but we were kind of hanging in there. We gained some points in each of the stages, and with different strategies flipping around, and we knew our opportunity to make something happen was going to be the get on a different strategy towards the end. And gosh, it's hard to believe we did that, and then we caught the break. Sometimes you got to have a little luck on your side, and we definitely did when the caution fell. And from there, it was up to Brad just to hit his marks and execute on his end on that last restart.
All right, we'll take questions for Paul. If you have one, please just raise your hand, state your name and affiliation. We'll start right here.
Zach Worrell, Indy Star. Paul, how much emphasis does Roger put on the Brickyard coming in, knowing that that Team Penske hadn't gotten a win here yet?
I wouldn't say he really, puts any more pressure, any more emphasis. I think everyone just, goes without saying, that all the success and that they've had here, and it's just been close many times. We just haven't been able to get it done. So, you go to every race every weekend, putting all the effort you can into it and doing all the things you can. And can't say that Indy's a whole lot different for us. We didn't prepare any differently, but it definitely is pretty special and means a lot to be able to, to kiss the bricks today and get that first win here for Team Penske and for Roger. And there's things on the list, the bucket list, right, that you're trying to check off, and this was definitely one of them. And pretty special that we could get it done. The only thing that could have been better than winning last week at Darlington and then winning again today at the Brickyard was if the boss was here to celebrate with us. Unfortunately, he hasn't been here for either one of the wins, but just really proud of this whole discount tire team and Brad, and just hanging in there. And this sport is so tough, and we've heard this a lot, but the fastest car doesn't always win, and there's a lot more to it than just being fast, and it comes down to execution and pit road and making the right calls. So I feel like our team's done a great job of that this year and trying to get all we can. And, we got to keep working. We need more speed in our cars, but if we can get a little more speed to go with the execution we've had, I think we're really going to be a contender in the championship.
We've now been joined by Walt Czarnecki. Walt, thanks for joining us. Just give
so
us
much.
a few words on what it means to finally check off that NASCAR win here at Indianapolis.
Well, yeah, at the risk of, sounding a little trite, winning here 17 times with a 500 sets the standard, and this is something we've been trying to do for 25 years, been close. I guess we finished second 5 times. So to be able to do it today with this discount tire Ford was really special. On that last call, Paul just made a tremendous call. And that last restart with 3 laps to go, I really knew that Brad was not going to be denied. He had fresher tires, but that notwithstanding, I knew he had the desire. I know how much he wanted to win the race. He and I spoke about it before the race, and he assured me that he was going to do everything he could to win the race. In fact, he did. My only regret is that Roger's not here. He really deserves to be here. In fact, my phone is ringing. That's not him. But he really deserves to be here because this race means so much to him. He was here all day yesterday, and we didn't get a chance to run. So he and I have been exchanging texts, so he's thrilled about it. But again, thanks to everybody at Team Penske, Roger certainly for his vision, his commitment to this team, Tim Cindric, and everybody else who made this happen. Thank you, Paul.
All right, we'll continue with questions for Paul or Walt. We'll start with Dustin and then go to Matt.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Paul, obviously you guys have pulled off 2 great wins back-to-back at 2 great tracks, but as you stated, you haven't had the speed. You guys have won it through execution. How much can you do that in the playoffs? Can you get away with this type of thing, or how much of a concern is it not to have the speed and kind of having? It's great that you're maximizing things, but can you do that 10 weeks in a row?
Well, if you asked anyone coming into the last 2 weeks, they'd probably say we couldn't win either one. So I guess anything's possible, Dustin. But you're right. I mean, like I said, we want more speed. We know we're off a little bit there, but I believe we can get through the first round for sure by just executing and not making mistakes. And as I look at second and third round, there's some great opportunity races there. We know we can go to Talladega and win. And we know we can go to Martinsville and win. We have a little bit of work to do on the intermediate tracks to find a little more speed, but winning the last 2 weeks definitely is a little booster for everyone at Team Penske, and we just got to find another level, another gear to work in, and I believe we can get there. And like I said, if we can get just a little more speed with the execution we have right now, I think we're going to be a real threat when it comes down to the end of this.
Matt Weaver with Auto Week. When you talk to drivers, they'll tell you that certain tracks, whether it's the short tracks or road courses, those are driver tracks. You talk to spotters, they feel very invested in the restrictor plate tracks. They feel like they make more of a difference. Is this a track because of the strategy calls that challenges you guys on the pit boxes more than any other?
It does. I mean, there's some drivers that obviously are better than others here, and it's a unique style racetrack, not like anything else we run at, but strategy always seems to be a big factor in who wins here. I mean, if you look at obviously last year, with Casey winning, they weren't the fastest car either. So it's definitely a challenge. Obviously, if you do have the fastest car, it can be frustrating at times when you don't get the win, but when you're off a little bit, there's always opportunity. There's a lot of different scenarios that played out today, especially with the stage racing, and as we saw the field get jumbled around as guys were on different strategies, and that was our best shot, and sometimes you catch a break and sometimes you don't, and we were, the way it all shuffled after the end of stage 2, I think we finished 6th or 7th in stage 2, and we came out after that cycle 14th or 15th, and at that point, the difference of, maybe getting up to 10th or finishing 18th, I was willing to take the gamble and run long, and that's what we did, and we caught the break when we needed it. So you still have to have a car that's fast enough when you do get that clean air. Even though you're not the fastest, you still have to be competitive, and we definitely have that. And when we put ourselves in position like we did this week and last week, we were able to get the win.
Additional questions? Okay.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Paul, let me ask you this: is what has gone well for you guys the last 2 weeks that hasn't earlier in the season to where you weren't able to get those wins? I mean, I know you've had that struggle with speed all season. Have you not maximized things as well, or is there something else? And why are you guys doing it now as opposed to being able to do it earlier?
I can't say that in my mind, that there's anything really a whole lot different. We know in this sport sometimes you get good breaks and sometimes you get bad, and I feel like just the beginning of the year we caught a lot of bad breaks, and now maybe it's our turn to catch a couple. I don't feel like I'm calling the race a whole lot different than I did earlier in the season. I try to always make the best educated decision I can. Sometimes obviously they're a bit of a gamble, but we try to use as much data and history and try to understand how the race is going to play out to make some of those decisions. And sometimes you're just not going to catch the break, and we were able to do that the last couple weeks. And the pit crew executed, last week when we needed them to, and it's been an up and down year on pit road for us, and there's been stops where we've been really strong, but there's been some bad ones too, and we just caught it on the right side of it last week, and then, like I said, this isn't the first time we've done this sort of a strategy, and other races it didn't work out this year, but today it did.
Walt, now that you've been texting back and forth with Roger a little bit, and you've had a little time to think about it, has it set in for the organization-wise that you guys won the Indianapolis 500 and the Brickyard 400 in the same year?
No, and I really hadn't thought about it until you reminded me a few minutes ago. This was so big, I think, in all of our minds to win this race, and we were so focused on it that we forgot about the great win that Will had here back in May. So to do this, again, makes this an extra special year. Again, I would remind everyone that this also was our 499th Team Penske win. I was in a way this morning when I got to the racetrack, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we won the Xfinity race for 499 and won the Brickyard 500 for our Brickyard 400 for our 500th win. A little wishful thinking, got half of it came true, but no, it really means a lot. I want to thank Indianapolis Motor Speedway Corporation, the Holman George family, and Doug Bowles and everybody. I know they had a tough weekend here, having to deal with the weather that we all had to deal with, but I know as a track operator myself, I know the challenges that it brings. So I want to congratulate them for the great job that they did here this weekend.
All right. Any final questions for Paul or Walt before we let them go? Okay, we'll take one more question before we start.
And Paul, looking ahead to next week to Las Vegas, I know you talk about looking at history and things like that. Obviously, it's a new date for that race. The temperature is going to be hotter than it's ever been for any of the races in the spring. Obviously, you can take some data from the spring, but what are the challenges in looking ahead to that race and trying to put things together for that one?
Yeah, it's definitely, to your point, it'll be a new one. We have a lot of history and notes on the spring race, and we've had some good success there and always seem to run well. But to your point, there'll be some new challenges going into being a playoff race, and track conditions change things a lot. It was pretty cold there from what I recall in the spring. And from what I've seen, it's going to be close to 100 degrees, track temps up. But with that being said, I think we've got a good enough group that we're going to dig in and try to ride this momentum. And I feel like like I said, we've had some good success there in the past, and there's no reason we can't go out there this week and have a strong car and put ourselves in position at the end. I look forward to this first round as a pretty good round for us. We run well at Richmond, and then obviously the Roval's a little bit of an unknown for everyone. So I think if we go do our job and not make any mistakes, we're going to be just fine.
All right. Paul, Walt, congratulations again.
Thank you.
We'll let you
Thanks.
guys go ahead, and you can be dismissed.
Bring the champion up here.
Yeah, that's right. We got to make the stage for Brad.
Thank you.
All right. Now we've been joined by the man of the hour, Brad Keselowski, driver of the number 2 Discount Tire Ford. Thanks for joining us, Brad. We know you've been a little busy the last couple hours. Just quickly, maybe an opening statement just on what it means to win. Here at Indy, obviously very special to Team Penske, for your team owner, Roger Penske. But then you also mentioned that it was your first Monster Energy Cup Series win for your sponsor, Discount Tire. Just what it means to be able to kind of have all of those things come together today.
Yeah, I mean, today was obviously a big day, but for us, a number of reasons why, and I know most of you know that, but I'll just go ahead and repeat them. With Roger Penske getting his first Cup win here, and myself getting the first Cup win here, at such a historic racetrack that means so much to all of motorsports. So for us to have our name on that win list sure does mean a lot to me, I can tell you that. And then you look at some of the other things we have going on, about to enter the playoffs, of course, having those few extra playoff bonus points, you never know when you're going to need those. You just can't ever predict it. So having 5 more of those sure does make us feel good about the next 10 weeks ahead. And then finally, like you said, our sponsors, Discount Tire, this is the first, they've been with me since 2010. And I don't know if I would be here in my career without them. But this is the first time they've been with us at the Cup level. and this is their first win. What a great first win to have, and I'm really happy for them as well. So just a terrific day all the way around, and I'm really, really happy, really just very much thrilled. Today was not an easy day. We certainly didn't go out and just dominate the whole race, but my team executed everything perfectly, caught a little bit of break, but we put ourselves in position for that break and then executed before and after it. So just very much thrilled to be here and thrilled to be a Brickyard 400 winner.
All right, we're going to take questions for Brad. If you have one, please state your name and affiliation.
Zacatans ready, kickingthetires.net. Obviously, it came down to that final restart, and you ended up getting the lead from Denny. Pretty wild racing back and forth with you two. Can you kind of recap how that last restart went with you and the 11 car?
Yeah, I knew we'd have a shot to run with Denny, and on that restart, the inside line just had incredible grip, and we drove from third to second, entering turn one, and then I knew it was just a matter of settling in. I was extremely loose, and so I was kind of nervous about that, being so loose and around Denny because, I knew I was going to have to pass him on the inside, and when you pass him on the inside, you get even looser, and I'd almost spun out right before the yellow came out before that, so, I got a little bit of a run on him off of turn 4 with 2 to go and got right up behind him through 1 and 2, and eventually was able to just barely take a peek underneath him off of 2 and try to get a run. And we held each other pretty tight entering 3, and I knew going into turn 3 underneath him that with no air on the right side of the car, I was just going to wreck us both. So I had to let him go and try to make another run at him for turn 4, and that's what we were able to do, was able to just get in there and kind of dig position into turn 4, and it stuck, and I was able to clear him, and gosh, that was one of the best things I ever heard in my life, was clear off of turn 4 at Brickyard coming to the white flag. So what a day. It was to me, a great finish. And like I said, we weren't good enough to beat him straight up, and we didn't. But we put ourselves in position to do it with great strategy and timing all the moves right on pit road and on the racetrack. So I'm really thrilled for that.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. For as great as this moment is, how tough was it a year ago, and what was the difference in terms of the restarts? I know you were in different lanes, but
Yeah.
it was kind of, in some sense, a similar situation.
Well, yeah, there was a lot going on here today. That certainly, to your point, victories like this are sweeter when you've had failures beforehand. And I feel like I've had a car capable of winning this race 2 or 3 times in the past. Today was probably, not even in the top 3 for cars that I've had here. With that in mind, either I didn't execute or we didn't execute as a team. And so you try to learn from that, and you try to be better and apply yourself in the best way possible. And today, we executed across the board. I executed the passes I needed to execute, executed the long run there, executed the strategy on the team's end and the pit stop on the team's end, and that's why we're here today. So with that in mind, that's part of the ebbs and flows and part of what makes this victory taste so sweet.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. I have 2. The first, just Denny obviously was a little bit upset that lap cars, that lap cars kind of wreck and end up bringing the field back. Just how, I want to say random is it, or how much, is it luck the right word?
Yeah, I mean, Indy has always been this way. Before I came here this weekend, I sat down and watched the 1994 Indy 500, and the announcers were talking towards the closing stages how Indy always changes right at the end, and that's always been how this race seems to play out. There's always something that happens with 20 to go that completely shakes everything up. I don't know why that is. In that particular race, Emerson Fittipaldi was going to win it hands down, and he got caught up in lap traffic, spun out in a wreck, and Little Al did. But with that in mind, that's been the story of this race forever, and it's burned us. And today it probably worked in our favor. So, like I said, you got to take the ups with the downs and appreciate when you're on the upswing and put yourself in position to be on the upswing. But no, sometimes those things aren't going to work out. Today it did, and we're very proud of that and thankful for it.
And with McMurray up there near the end, were you wondering what type of moves he might try to pull, considering he was
Jamie's a
away now?
pretty solid and smart racer, and quite honestly, we had such a great car there at the end with the new tires that I felt pretty confident we'd be able to make the most of it, Bob.
Zach Worrell, Indy Star. Brad, have you had a chance to speak with Roger yet? And if so, what's that conversation like?
Yes, I did. It was a very brief conversation. He's unfortunately couldn't be here today. He's on a secret mission somewhere. So if you know Roger Penske, that makes perfect sense. But with that in mind, I very much wish he was here, and I'm thinking about him. And gosh, just such a big day for Team Penske. It's such a shame he wasn't here.
Matt Weaver, Auto Week. I got two for you, Brad. The first one, you had said earlier that getting the all clear was like a big matter of relief. Did you expect a little bit more resistance from Denny, because you were kind of the aggressor,
Well,
leaning on him?
I knew Matt. I was really loose through turn 4, and I bobbled trying to get by him and to make the pass, and I was like, and I couldn't quite carry the run, and I thought he might still be there, and I knew if he was still there off of 4 that the race was over. I wasn't going to win.
And secondly, it feels like, maybe you'll disagree, but it feels like this race more than any other is so strategy dependent, and having
Sure.
a guy like Paul who can make those right calls is very vital. I never feel like there's ever a moment that you really question one of his calls. How much is it just of value to have a guy that you're on the same page with?
Well, I'm glad you feel that way. It's kind of like mom and dad arguing. Mom and dad should never argue in front of their kids. So, I'm not going to say that Paul and I always agree on everything, but I sure did agree with that last call. And, we try to stay on the same page as much as possible, but these races are so dynamic. You come into them with a plan, and then yellows come out and things happen, and next thing you know, your plan is garbage. And that's tough to deal with sometimes, but that's part of racing. But Paul's a smart guy and made the most of the strategy when it counted. I think so. Strategy is so important here because the cars struggle so much with the aerodynamics behind each other that you can have a much faster race car and not be able to pass. And so getting all that right is very critical. No problem, Matt.
Brad, two wins. Steve Schweitzer of the Lasco Press. 2 wins in a row, heading into the playoffs. That's got to be a huge confidence boost and momentum boost. What can you do to keep that rolling over the next few weeks?
Trying to look at the next 10 weeks. The next 10 weeks are races upon their own. There's a lot of conversation based around momentum, and today's certainly great, but there's not a lot we're going to really take from Vegas other than the 5 bonus points and the money. With that in mind, so we're proud of this win, for sure, but it's no guarantee for any success in the playoffs. We have to go out and earn it each and every lap of each and every race.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. A couple things. Obviously, anything can happen in the playoffs. You understand that, been around. But with the advantage that at least Kyle and Kevin have in terms of playoff points, do you almost view it as everybody else is racing for 2 spots at Homestead, or do you almost feel like it's 1 spot with Truex?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you can have one really bad race and lose 50 points pretty quick. Dustin, and honestly, they don't have 50 on me. I think they have 35 on me, if that's right. Rough. I mean, give me a little bit of slack. It's close, right? Yeah. There's nobody's going to audit us, right? It's somewhere around there. 2019 to 2050, so it's 31. Okay. So I mean, yeah, that's a good race in the playoffs is a 40 to 45 point race. So that in mind, a bad race in the playoffs is like a 3 or a 5 point race. So that's within that window pretty quickly. There's no guarantees. I would want to be in the 50s or 60s to feel like I was going to have a lock to Homestead. So they're close to that, but not there. So, and then of course those last 3 races, you have 3 different winners that aren't them. And that means there's only 1 seat at the table. So we're looking forward to those weeks. Each one of these rounds, the way that the schedule has realigned, has had a racetrack that I think we can win at. So I'm really optimistic about that. Probably for us, Homestead is the toughest besides the Roval track for us. So we're excited and ready to go, but there's a big challenge in front of us, but also an incredible opportunity.
And on pit road, Kyle Busch was asked if, who's the fourth among the big three, and he suggested it's you based on the last 2 weeks. So are you the fourth?
I'd love to be the first. There's no guarantee in any of these things, so I don't know. That's a long ways from now, and I think you get to looking too far ahead. That's how you get yourself in trouble. I think you got to go 1 week at a time. And I know that sounds like the old football coach cliche, but that's really the reality here, because you can dig a big hole so fast when you get to looking too far ahead. No problem, Dustin.
Bob Hawkers, ESPN. There's been some joking over the last few days that maybe this race is just cursed because of all the rain. And I'm curious if you felt, from a Penske standpoint, whether you guys have been kind of cursed in this race.
Yeah, we have felt a little cursed, Bob. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But honestly, I felt like I've made some mistakes along the way that have kept us from winning. And today was a day where we just didn't make them. And we had great strategy, a little bit of luck on our side, and perfect execution.
And do you think today could be potential for lifting maybe any curse off this race, or when we talk about who knows what type of aero package you'll have come here a year from now?
Well, I really like the idea of this race being maybe not the cutoff race to the playoffs, but towards the fall months. I think there's a good fit there, and it makes good sense to me. I'd really like it if it was, like IRP or whatever that track's called now on a Wednesday, and then Indy on a Sunday. I wish we could race twice in this region in the week, so you get a little dose of both. But you can't complain. The track's trying really hard to do what they can do, and we're very fortunate to be able to have stock cars here running at this track, and thankful for that opportunity.
All right. Do we have one more question? Everybody good? Okay. We have one more.
Dustin Albino, front judge. Brad, after you won last week, you said you expected to run 5th to 10th. Is that about where you expected to run today?
Yeah, it was pretty similar. We were a little bit worse than that at times, a little bit better than that at times. Obviously, in the end, when you do everything right in these types of races, you can execute and have a shot at it, and we did just that.
All right, Brad, before we let you sneak out, we have a quick presentation for you. A little visitor here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I didn't know you were back there, I swear.
So for the Indy 500, when the 100th running came up, we started going around town to help promote, giving out bottles of milk, just to promote the running. And then this year, I think you noticed in town, airport, everywhere, we've really tried to make sure people know how important this race is. So what we did is we decided it wasn't a good idea to give the governor a bottle of Big Machine vodka. So we did a Big Machine vodka logo, and we gave out champagne bottles. We gave out 24 of them ahead of you. We saved 25 of 25 for the winner of the event. So don't drink it. It's cheap champagne with just really cool graphics on it. So.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate
Congrats, man. Really excited for you, and really excited for Roger, and can't wait to have you back.
I know where this is going. This is going on a mantle somewhere. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Congrats.
Cheers.
All right.
Thanks, guys.